Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phil's Place. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite NFL football helmets. Why am I talking about this? Well, because it's simple. Back when I was in first grade, which is almost 50 years ago, I started collecting the little mini helmets that you'd see in the bubblegum machines at the grocery store. And that's when I fell in love, with not just the helmets, but the uniforms and football as a whole, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're going back almost 50 years for that one. But anyway, this is going to be the basis of my episode today. And the criteria is kind of basic: appearance, the logo, stripes or no stripes, not that that's a major factor, and the face mask, the color of the face mask. And I'll give a brief reason as to why I have these top 10 ranked where they're at. And then I'll have 3 that are honorable mention. And, it's a shame because there's some other helmets that are pretty cool that I'd like to feature, but they're just not in the top 10 and 3 honorable mentions. Okay, so let's get started here. Number 10 on this list of my top 10 favorite NFL football helmets. We're going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. And this is a team that rebranded its entire look. Uniform changes, color scheme changes, all that kind of stuff. They made major modification to the Seahawk logo. The classics they had back in the day were great, and they still wear them, I think, once or twice a season. Probably one of the best classic looks, which we'll do another episode about that in the future, right before the Super Bowl or whatever. Anyway, they have a navy blue helmet. I don't know the exact shade within the Pantone list of all the colors they have. You can pick colors for paint that you want to paint your rooms or your houses, as your apartments or whatever. But when you're on Wikipedia looking up each team, it'll give you that Pantone of the exact shade. So anyway, it's a navy blue. They modified the color blue because it used to be like a regular royal blue type color. The Seahawk has a more fierce look to it, more so like an attack mode than the old Seahawk logo, which I think this current logo is better anyway. And it has the top of the Seahawk behind his head has the same navy blue stripe. It has a white stripe below it. They used to have like a blue and green. And then they use this like neon highlighter kind of like type green color for the eye, and it's incorporated within the color scheme of the uniforms too. Navy blue face mask, no stripes coming from the top or the bottom. Don't need them for that type of logo. But yeah, that's my number 10. It's pretty cool, and I think it's fitting for the city of Seattle. Been to Seattle before. It's a great city. Almost similar color scheme to the Mariners baseball team. Not quite, but similar, close enough. And it has, to me, it's like a Pacific Northwest type of color scheme, and it's cool. So definitely a cool logo. Okay, that's number 10. Numero 9. Number 9. We're going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. Very similar to what Seattle did. They did a rebranding back in, I guess it would have been the 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember when. They just basically changed the shade of green from a color green to like a deep, dark pine green type of Pantone green. And it kind of has a shine to it with the helmet. And they added black for a border for the wing that is on each side. It's a white wing. The old helmet was a color green with a gray wing and white border around it. And then way back in the day, they actually had white helmets with just the green wing, and that was it. So to my memory, this is like their 4th helmet, I guess. For Seattle, I think they're on their 3rd helmet. I can't remember as far as rebranding, that type of stuff. But anyway, it's a cool look. It's a cool color scheme. Goes great with the uniforms. I'm not gonna get into alternate colored uniforms or helmets That could be a separate episode, actually. The Eagles do have two different uniform schemes behind what they normally wear. They go with an all black look that has a black helmet. They go back to the color green days of the late 80s, early 90s. Okay, so the Eagles, number 9. So that takes us to number 8. And it's still weird for me to say the Las Vegas Raiders. They're always going to be the Oakland Raiders to me. And that's because I love history. I enjoy the history of the NFL, the teams, the players, the Super Bowl matchups, the playoff matchups, and the types of games that were played back then. Rough, very, very rough play. They changed the rules, obviously, over the years to protect quarterbacks and wide receivers, that type of stuff. But I grew up in the 70s as a little boy, and just that's the type of football I watched back then. But anyway, the Raiders, classic look. They never had to make any changes to their uniforms, slight changes, nothing really to the helmet that I recall. I think they may have modified their helmet in the mid to late 60s, and they kept the same helmet since. It's a silver helmet with a basic black stripe from the base going all the way to the back. The logo, it's like a crest, like a seal on both sides of almost like a cartoonish, drawn man wearing the same type of football helmet without a face mask, chin strap off, kind of hanging, and has these two swords behind him. And it's just, it's super cool. And the Raiders are one of the teams that, used to scare me when I was little because that was a good rivalry with the Steelers. In fact, the Raiders knocked them off in the playoffs in 1976, which was a lot of people argue and say that was the best Steelers roster in the history of this franchise, especially back in the 70s when they won 4 Super Bowls. But yeah, they probably should have made it to Super Bowl 11, didn't. Raiders knocked them off, ended up beating the Vikings, and that was for, I think, their first Super Bowl victory, I want to say. But anyway, yeah, the Raiders are at number 8. Okay, so we're going to go to number 7, and I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills here. And the Bills are kind of like our second favorite team here at home because my wife grew up in Warren, PA. And up in Warren, there's 3 teams that her family and friends grew up, watching and rooting for. So you got the Bills, got the Steelers, and got the Browns. And Warren's kind of like in that in between of the, off to the side, but close enough proximity to each city. But the Bills have, to me, again, they went back to a classic 1970s, early 80s look with the white helmet that has red stripe going from the front of the helmet to the back, 2 blue stripes on each side. Back in the early 70s, when they moved to what was originally called Rich Stadium in Orchard Park, New York, they changed their uniforms a little bit. They basically just kind of changed the helmets. And instead of having this like old classic buffalo just standing there, you have more of like this charging buffalo, almost kind of like a bull type of, buffalo that has a red streak that runs to the side of the logo. And I've always liked it. I always thought it was pretty cool. And then with this current helmet they're wearing, they have a white face mask. I think sometimes they might slap on a blue face mask, but it's basically just the white face mask with the white helmet. And they do wear that throwback helmet from the 60s. I think maybe once a season, maybe twice a season. But anyway, yeah, the Bills are my number 7. So let's go with number 6. And I have my list I'm looking at, kind of like my chicken scratch here. Wrote some quick notes as well. Let's go with the New York Giants. Kind of like the same case with the Bills, switch their helmets around a little bit, not so much the colors, but I love that NY logo, which is what they first started off with back in the 1950s. They started adding some color to the helmets and some and logos to have more of a brand for each team. And then in the 70s, they switched to just the spelling of Giants on both sides of the helmet when they moved to East Rutherford, New Jersey at the original Meadowlands Stadium. And then I'd say, I'm guessing this, about 15 years ago, I don't know when, but they went back to the NY logo with just the red stripe going from front to back. Um, when they switched, I want to say they had the gray face mask the whole time. You can drop your comments, if you have any corrections for me. We'll get into the comments here at the end of this episode, um, but anyway, it's a classic look. It reminds me of seeing the old footage of, I guess, would have been in 1958, the NFL championship game when the Colts beat the Giants. Again, I'm only going by memory. I don't use a script when I do my podcast. I like to be as authentic and maybe get a couple things wrong versus sounding professional, being, like NFL Films or ESPN 30 and 30. I'm not going to be that person when I do my podcast. I am authentic. I ramble. I get things wrong. I say, way too many times, but that's what happens when you're at Phil's place. Okay, so anyway, I gave you the reason why I like the Giants helmet, and I just like that shade of blue. It's kind of like a shiny blue. It has a shine to it for their helmet. It looks good on TV. Yeah. So, okay, that's my number 6. So before I get into the top 5, I did not explain why I love football helmets or what really got me into it, other than the fact that, this first love of my that I have for the helmets and the logos and the uniforms goes back almost 50 years. But I think I was in first grade, and you could buy the little mini helmets in the bubble gum machines next to the bubble gum or the other types of gum or candy. And I think it was maybe even a quarter back then. I can't remember, but I begged my mom, when she's cashing out with all the groceries, "Mom, can I have a quarter? I want to buy a football helmet." So that's when I started collecting them. And at one point I had all the teams, which would have been back in the late 70s, 78, 79, 80 maybe. And then I would line them up when I'd see, each team and their opponent. I would line them up on the living room floor, the Bills playing the Giants, the Steelers playing the Dolphins, whatever, you know. But I was a geek back then, and I'm still a geek. I'm still a nerd. I don't care. It's just who I am. So, all right. But that's the basis of, why I got into this. And I still have the actual mini helmets you can put on your desk. I have a few of those upstairs of the Steelers. Steelers might be the only professional team I have. And I have some college teams, Pitt, of course, Alabama, Clemson. Oh, I have the Arizona Cardinals because it's a classic look. But they did not make my top 10 or even my honorable mention. Okay, enough rambling. I want to keep you watching. Okay, so we're in the top 5, and I am going to go with the Chicago Bears. I love that shade of navy blue. It doesn't have a shine to it. It's just kind of like that matte looking type of navy blue that they've always had, with an orange sea on each side, the white border around the sea, no stripe front to back. Back in the day when they went to this look, they had the gray face mask, the old classic look. But they changed that in the early 80s to the navy blue. And they added navy blue pants to the uniform scheme to wear with the white jersey. And at home, they wore, of course, the navy blue with the white pants. And that was back in the Walter Payton days. And he's definitely one of my favorite football players all time, let alone one of the best running backs to ever play the game. Sweetness is his nickname. Kind of a closet Bears fan, I guess you can say, because of the allure of that team, that franchise, the publicity they got in the 85 season. They almost went undefeated. They went on to clobber the New England Patriots in Super Bowl. It wasn't 16. I don't remember the number. But anyway, they also, I think, were the first team to have a music video. And they did like a team, kind of like a rap, they were rapping. And when you look back at it, it's kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, still kind of funny. I think it was called the Super Bowl Shuffle. Correct me if I'm wrong once again. But anyway, they weren't annoying. They weren't like hogging up, all the media time back then. But, just Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities. I mean, what can you say? Um, There's nothing I don't like about Chicago. This is one of my favorite cities. And Love to see the Bears play at home. Of course, love to see the Cubs play at home. But anyway, the Bears are number 5 for that reason. So that takes us to the top 4. And I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers. Classic Cole helmet. They went back to the white helmet years ago, but they actually changed the scheme of the colors, and they have the same lightning bolt that goes across the helmet. And then they have a lighter blue that goes around the yellow color of the lightning bolt, yellow face mask. And it goes great with its color scheme, goes great with its uniform sets, and it has the number of the player, the uniform number for each helmet as well, which I think is super, super, super cool. Classic, and that's what they started off with in the 60s, in the early 70s, before they went to a blue helmet, which had I think a white lightning bolt with gold around it, and the color yellow or gold, whatever. And they had some great teams back then in the late 70s and 80s. Dan Phelps was probably the best quarterback to never make it to the Super Bowl. And the Chargers teams back then may have been the best team to have never made it to the Super Bowl. This is before Super Bowl 29, okay? Because the Chargers did go to one Super Bowl, and they got clobbered by the 49ers. But I'm talking late 70s and into the 80s now, okay? That time period. They had some great teams back then, great uniforms. The Chargers put some fear into me as a Steelers fan when they play each other, because I just knew that the nickname of the offense was Eric Coryell. Dan Phelps always threw a perfect pass and had great receivers to throw to. But anyway, that adds to the allure of why I love this helmet and why I've always liked that franchise. I used to play in San Diego back then, the San Diego Superchargers at the Murph. And I've been to that stadium. I saw the Padres play there in 1987. Okay, I'm rambling. Again, I apologize. All right, so that takes us to my top 3 favorite football helmets. Number 3, the Cincinnati Bengals. They went from the worst to one of the best all in one season in 1981. When they started as a franchise in 1968, it was Paul Brown who owned the Browns, started a new franchise in Cincinnati, almost took the same uniform, except for Brown, they added black, substituted for black. Basic, ugly, bland uniform. Black jersey, white pants, white jersey, white pants, with an orange helmet, nothing to it but the word Bengals on both sides. You can't get any worse than that. It was terrible. And when I started watching football and collecting my little mini helmets, I'm like, as a 7-year-old, why do they just have Bengals written on their helmets? But somebody within the organization got it right in 1981 when they rebranded. And when I say they got it right, they were spot on right. They put stripes on on their helmets. They added the Bengal stripes, the tiger stripes to the shoulders, and then the outside of the pants, a stripe that goes down. Some teams use a stripe. Most teams use a stripe. Well, they did that with their helmets. They went from the worst to probably, my top 3, my number 3, but could be number 1 on a lot of people's black face mask. No more gray face mask. No more boring look. They went from the worst to one of the coolest all in one season. They actually went to the Super Bowl that year up at the Silverdome, and they lost to the 49ers. But Ken Anderson was a good quarterback. He deserved to get to the Super Bowl. I'm glad that he did. I think that was Chris Collinsworth's rookie year, maybe, or second year with the team. I can't remember. But anyway, good team back then. But definitely one of the best helmets. So now it takes us to our top 2. And number 2 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not because I'm a fanboy, not because the Steelers are my team, not because that's the look I'm used to the most. It's a great look. It's a great helmet. Black helmet, gold stripe front to back, and only one logo on the helmet. That would be on the right side, nothing on the left. And they started off using, I guess it was probably US Steel, the Steel logo. and it just said steel. And the 3 diamonds that you see are technically called hypocycloids. And they use yellow, which represents coal, red, which represents iron ore, and blue, which represents scrap steel. Those hypocycloids, those diamonds, are in the logo, but not part of the color scheme of the uniform. Black and gold, or black and yellow. So that's my number 2. They used to have a yellow helmet back in the day in the 60s with that same steel written in the logo. It was in 1963 or 64 when they added ERS to the end of steel, the steel ERS, and then changed to the black helmet in the mid-60s. Best team in the NFL, not the best team this season, but, the history. I'm a history buff, the history of the NFL, you name it. And the Steelers are one of those top historical teams, along with the Raiders, along with the Packers and some other teams. So, all right. That takes us to my favorite helmet. Number 1, numero uno on my list of top 10 favorite NFL football helmets. It's the Green Bay Packers. Why the Packers over the Steelers? 2 reasons. 1, I don't want to sound like a fanboy, although the Steelers might be my favorite helmet, but I really do think it's the Packers because I love the color scheme, the yellow helmet with the green and white stripes that go front to back, the logo, kind of like that football type shape logo with the G in it, white G, green background, green face mask. Great uniforms. We'll do uniforms another day, but it's my number 1. Plus, talking about history, one of the original teams from way back in the 1920s started as a franchise in a very small town in the United States, in Wisconsin. You'll never see a small town with a pro franchise, number 1 tier franchise like Green Bay. You don't see it in baseball. You don't see it in hockey. You don't see it in basketball. But they get the support. In fact, it's a community-owned team. Playing at the classic Lambeau Field, the frozen tundra. The history is just the best. Curly Lambeau, Vince Lombardi. They named the NFL Super Bowl trophy after Vince Lombardi. They won the first 2 Super Bowls. They weren't even called Super Bowls back then. And a little bit of family history. My dad had a radio station in Pittsburgh. He also was one of the only persons back then, this would have been January 1967, but a color TV. And our house in Thornburg, he would use to host parties and stuff like that way back in the day. Well, he had the guys from the radio station come over. They had a Super Bowl party. I don't know how many people were doing that back in 1967, the first World Championship game between the NFL and the AFL, but he did. Bill Hillgrove was one of the guys that worked at the radio station. He was a DJ back then, and he came to the house to watch the Super Bowl. He and my dad were old friends, stayed friends after Bill left. I call him Mr. Hillgrove, after he left from the radio station to go to work at WTAE to do sports for them. Voice of the Steelers, probably the best broadcaster from Western Pennsylvania. And when you watch the old NFL films, they use his, you get the audio from his call for some of these plays, Steelers score a touchdown or whatever. Just one of the best. But anyway, yeah, a little bit of family history. I had to talk about that. I'm sorry. But yeah, the Packers, number 1, no doubt. Steelers, number 2. I'm cool with that. And then I'll have the helmets. I'll have the Pantone shades of each color for each helmet that is in my top 10. And I do have 3 honorable mentions. Go with the San Francisco 49ers. I love that gold shade, that gold color, shiny gold as its helmet, the primary color, white stripe with red around it. And the logo is kind of like that same football shape, like the Green Bay Packers. It just has 49ers scripted within the logo. Red background, white or black, actually, it goes around that logo. Gray face mask, which should never change. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a team that rebranded, that went from probably one of the best looks ever for an NFL team I say ever too much too. Um, that creamsicle orange or whatever shade it is with that kind of like maroonish red as a border for the numbers, and had the creamsicle colored face mask, white helmet, that traditional great looking Buccaneer on both sides of the helmet. And when they rebranded, changed the logo, the color scheme, and everything, I'm like, why'd they do that? They messed up. But it grew on me. That pewter, it's not even silver, it's not gray. It's pewter as the primary color of the helmet, with this flag for the logo with the skull and the swords instead of the crossbones. And the flag pole is actually a sword. Very fitting for a Buccaneer, kind of like the pirate, very fitting. The flag is red. They added black, and they also still have that creamsicle shade within its color scheme for its uniforms. But the helmet grew on me. It's pretty cool. It's pretty nice, so we'll stay with it. Oh, what color is the face mask? Is it black? I don't remember. Here we go. Buccaneers, Buccaneers, Buccaneers. Yeah, black face mask. Pewter helmet, full logo, black face mask. So yeah, it's a great helmet. And then my third honorable mentions the Indianapolis Colts. Again, history, tradition, white helmet, horseshoe as the logo, gray face mask, blue stripe front to back. You can't go wrong. It's cool. It's neat. A lot of people will probably disagree with me. So, which leads to my point of, I'd like for you who watch this episode, please watch the whole thing. Please like it, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Phil's Place. Be greatly appreciated. But I want to hear your comments. Who are your top 10? You don't have to say why, just list it. If you want to think about 3 alternate or 3, honorable mentions, go for it. I will be doing additional episodes similar to this. I get into the NFL uniforms, maybe. I haven't made that decision yet. At least the jerseys, home, away, whatever. Definitely be doing hockey uniforms. And then when baseball season starts, I'll do my favorite home, my favorite away, my favorite alternate. And the logos too for Major League Baseball. And I'll drop some NBA stuff right before the start of the playoffs. And there's a lot of cool uniforms worn by the teams in the NBA. All right. Again, please subscribe to my page. Please like it. And I want to thank my sponsors, Kurtanich Construction, Clark Analytical Instruments, and Invisio. So thank you for your support. And if you'd like to be a sponsor, or if you want to, contribute financially to my page, you're more than welcome to. I don't like to ask this question, but I do want to take this podcast on the road. I do want to improve my equipment. Right now, it's just me and a MacBook Pro. But I would like to have more of a studio type of setup. And so any financial support for that would be greatly appreciated, to be honest with you. So this wraps up, I think, I guess it could be episode number 10. Usually the episodes I like to have for a guest. And I will be doing additional interviews covering travel, culture, sports, music. That's what I do. They all kind of go hand in hand. Speaking of culture, I'm going to be doing an episode either by myself or with my friend Alex. I got this book. It's called Culture is Everything. And for as much as I love my sports and my music, I'm really interested in the topic of culture. It's deep, it's philosophical, but we won't go deeper philosophical with it. But culture shapes us. Culture is part of who we are. We create culture. We are members of cultures. But yeah, we'll do probably a couple episodes on culture and why it's fitting, especially with me being a travel agent, being immersed in cultures, either in the States or up in Canada or internationally speaking. So anyway, okay. Thank you for coming to Phil's Place. It's greatly appreciated. I, again, apologize for rambling, but that's just what I do. I'm authentic. I don't really do much edits. I say, probably a little too much, but Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.